So, some trouble I've had in the past, especially with traditional work, I've found, is I judge a piece I'm working on at every single stage of the process. If you're a traditional artist, you'll know this. Traditional paintings usually have an ugly stage, which I'm not used to, being primarily a digital artist. And then, even once it's finished, I judge it more. I either like it or don't like it, think it's good or mediocre. So I'd like to remind myself to go into creating with a perspective of full acceptance of what is and what comes. The act of making art is such a sacred and beautiful thing, and allowing my mind to just judge every step of it, or be too anxious to even allow myself to create anything, turns it into something that's more painful or difficult. When I fully surrender and accept what is, I'm allowing myself to be fully present and without resistance. In art, but also in life, this takes the weight off of anything that I do. No matter how much I stress about how a art piece will turn out, it's gonna turn out the way that it's gonna turn out. So surrendering to that, I can accept every stage of the artwork and actually enjoy the process of creating. And then when the piece is finished, I can find peace in accepting that it may not be the most perfect or beautiful work of art that I've ever made, but I've allowed myself to enjoy making it. And isn't that just the whole point? I'd also like to work towards full acceptance of when I'm feeling particularly unmotivated or slow. In the past, my happiness pretty much depended on whether or not I was productive. Looking through old journal entries, I could be an anxious mess one day and then giddy the next because I had a productive day in between. I can now understand that full acceptance also includes the undesirable conditions. Yes, I can be happy when I feel good enough to make lots of art and have a productive day. And yes, I can feel a little blah when there's a lack of motivation to do much. But regardless of what I'm able to do or how I feel in that moment, I can still be at peace with an acceptance of whatever cycle I'm in. I know now, and I can remind myself that periods of slowness and lack of motivation are just as important as the periods of high energy and productivity. You kind of need one to have the other. They're both essential, so treating one like the worst thing in the world just creates resistance and suffering. So whenever I need a break, I can accept that fully, knowing that I'll come back to art when I'm ready, feeling rested and at peace with what is. In recent years, paying attention to what goes on inside me behind my actions, I've taken notice of my impulse responses to things. I feel like this is a common thing in this day and age, obviously, but when I feel boredom or discomfort, I feel like I've conditioned myself to immediately alleviate those negative feelings with some sort of distraction. Usually picking up my phone, looking for notifications, scrolling social media, stuff like that. Into this new year, I'm fully aware that my boredom is just a feeling. And just like any other feeling, it will pass. Knowing this, whenever I feel those trigger emotions, boredom, restlessness, discomfort, I can recognize them and use them as a signal to remind me to pause, really feel what I'm feeling, come back to the present, and then decide what I want to do from there. That way, I'm the one deciding, not my impulse, dopamine-hungry monkey brain. And then, ideally, I can change course and direct myself to do something I actually want to do, like making art or learning something I'm interested in. But even if, after coming back to the present, I still want to pick up my phone, at least now it can be an intentional decision rather than an impulse reaction. At least then, I'm choosing to indulge in social media or whatever else. And whatever I choose to do, I will accept fully without any guilt or regret later. In 2024, I dug through a lot of different thoughts and ideas around my art making, and how I want to do more of it or just enjoy the time I give to it more deeply. I found that often when distracted by my mind and its stresses or overthinking, it was my art process that suffered, becoming just a means to an end. I would think about how it's going to turn out, or what I want to do next, or how long a certain piece is taking me, or if it was for a client, what they're going to think of it. Being taken over by my mind extinguishes any joy that might come from the act of creation and replaces it with anxious overthinking. A perspective I've come across that has really changed the way that I think about my art practice is that all creation comes from a place of no mind. All mastery of anything, truly. Once you know what you're doing well enough, which I feel like at this point in my life, I'm close enough, you don't really need the mind to perform anymore. It's intuitive. It's like muscle memory. I've found peace in knowing that past maybe the initial planning stage of an artwork, I don't really need my mind anymore. Any thinking past figuring out the concept or composition of a piece is just kind of incessant and unnecessary. This idea, along with full acceptance, allows me to truly enjoy and honor my creative process. Let myself really become immersed in what I'm doing. Be curious about what I'm creating. This way, art making can become something infinitely more deep and joyful than just copying something's likeness on paper. It's like without the veil of my mind and my anxiousness and my overthinking over me as I'm drawing something, it's like I'm not just drawing its outward appearance. I'm looking to portray its essence. I feel like I can create from a deeper place that is just connected to everything. And that's pretty cool. So, growing up, I was a proud multitasker. It was a part of my identity and something that fed my ego that I could do multiple things at once pretty well. Be much more efficient and productive than someone who could only do one thing at a time. And it's funny, a lot of the things that I considered strengths when I was a kid have now become a detriment to me in my adulthood and are things that I struggle to unlearn. Now I know, along with the untangling of my self-worth from my capacity to be productive, that the beauty of life is truly only visible when you allow yourself to slow down. When you honor the moment, when you allow your full attention to remain fixed on whatever you're doing without any mind interruption, it makes that doing so much more fulfilling and enjoyable. And if I can fill my life with every moment being just as enjoyable as the last, then damn, I feel like that's all I could really want out of this life. So, a reminder, whenever you can, whenever you feel able, honor the now by doing one thing at a time and trying to be fully present while doing it, especially when it comes to art. Allowing my full attention to be focused on the act of creation rather than distracted by the what ifs and the anxieties of what will come of it allows the process to be the beautiful part, not how the artwork turns out in the end. That can be beautiful too, but once a work is finished, at least for me, the satisfaction doesn't last long until I'm on to the next thing. And a quote from Eckhart Tolle that really stuck with me: "Do not be concerned with the fruit of your action. Just give attention to the action itself. The fruit will come of its own accord." Okay, so this one's a bit of a doozy. That's why I put it last. Definitely a difficult thing to wrap your head around. Maybe because the head or the ego doesn't like the idea of letting go of something that it depends on for its sense of self. But I think on top of everything I've spoken about, to connect with becoming more of an artist or becoming an artist more deeply, I think it's also important not to hold on so tightly to the idea that you are an artist. Bear with me here. This idea kind of started with fear. I've always been an artist. I've always been good at art. Growing up, I was the art kid in my class. I drew all the time. So much so that I decided to get a degree in the arts and make it my whole career. And as of current, creativity, creating art, and the act of designing aesthetically pleasing visuals are so inherently entangled in my life that it can be difficult for me to imagine my life without it, without this identity of the artist. When I was younger, much younger, I used to think, what if I lose my ability to use my hands or go blind so I can't draw anymore? And my response to that was that I would probably unalive myself. Yeah. I was young, okay? I was an edgy, low-key, depressed kid. But since then, obviously, with life experience and a fully developed frontal lobe, my perspective on that has somewhat changed. In 2021, I got a blind spot in the center of the vision of my left eye. I had always had perfect eye health, so I thought it would just go away, but it didn't. It got worse, so I went to the optometrist, who then sent me to a retina specialist, and I was treated for idiopathic choroidal neovascularization. Basically, I had a bunch of fluid buildup in my retina that was causing the growing blind spot, and idiopathic means that they don't know why it happened. At my age and good health, it was an anomaly. I continued treatment since then, and it's stable now, but I have a possibly permanent warp in my vision. Basically, the middle of my left eye vision is still missing some information, so my brain takes that image and the image from my right eye, which is still fully correct, and merges them together. So it's kind of interesting. It's like my vision is like slightly like in from what actually is. And yeah, it was scary. That was the first real health scare that I ever had, and at 23 years old, it made me confront a lot of real questions in myself. The intrusive thought of, what if I go blind, from when I was a kid, was suddenly a lot more real. Maybe it was the confrontation of a real threat to my identity as a visual artist, but past the initial fear and worry around this condition, I kind of made peace with damn, if I do lose my vision, I suppose it wouldn't be the end of the world, obviously. It kind of is what it is. I'll still have this like creative drive in me to do something, and luckily visual art isn't the only form of creativity in life. So I kind of just made peace with, if I lost my identity as a visual artist, I'd be okay. You know, life could still be really joyful. That whole chapter of my life came with a realization and somewhat of an acceptance of the impermanence of all things. I know now that who I am isn't dependent on being an artist or being able to make art. Even if I were to stop making art by force or just simply because I didn't want to anymore, I wouldn't be any less myself than I am now. Seeing life from this lens is unbelievably freeing. It releases the anxiety around not making enough art or not being good enough at art, ideas that I've clung to my entire life, and it makes way for just peace and joy, knowing that I am who I am and the art that I make has no stake in that fact. I can go into my art practice playfully, with a sense of ease and lightness, knowing that whatever happens will happen, and that's cool. I'm cool either way. I'm still me. And that's basically all I wanted to say. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2025. Wishing you all love, light, and happiness this new year. All the best in whatever you whatever your goals are for the next 12 months or whatever. And just know that they don't define you, and you know, it's better to go into them playfully, I suppose. So yeah, these were all just, you know, thoughts I've had in my mind lately, and I guess I just wanted to announce them as like intentions for the year. I just wanted to make this video as something that I could come back to, listen to again, to remind myself how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking at the beginning of this year. A year is a very long time. It's very easy to feel one way at the beginning of it and then just kind of forget or stray off your path a little bit. So yeah, I hope that this was enjoyable to listen to. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear any like mantras or intentions that you guys have coming into the new year. If there are any like specific quotes or anything that have really stuck with you and helped you with your life and art practice and just everything, I would love to hear it. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you, and a special extra thank you, an even bigger thank you to my patrons. Yeah. What is that show where the intro, it's like, yeah, I don't know, I just remember seeing it. What is that like? It's a police show. It was a show that was always on TV when I was a kid in the 2000s. Yeah, thanks guys. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you guys. Thank you for your support as always. I'm excited for everything that's gonna happen in 2025. Hope you guys are too. And yeah, thank you so much. And that's all. Thank you for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, rest of your month, rest of your life. Yeah. And I will talk to you guys in a bit.